So, I normally don't talk that often about animal attacks, but perhaps that needs to change. Because I read an absolutely incredible story about a man and the wild beasts that roam the world, and it's just too crazy not to talk about. Deep in the heart of the Asian continent, there's a sizable chunk of land called the Tuvan region. This is a 1,000-mile stretch of remote, undeveloped, heavily forested territory in southern Russia, bordering the northwestern region of Mongolia. This Tuvan region is almost entirely wilderness, with a healthy population of boreal animals. Among these various continental fauna, we have the Asian brown bear. These brown bears are generally solitary creatures. They live and hunt on their own, and they only socialize with other bears when they're trying to find a mate, when they're raising cubs, or when they're engaging in some kind of violent conflict over territory or access to a mate. Besides this small handful of high-value social situations, the rest of a brown bear's life is spent hunting, eating, and sleeping on their own. They're omnivores, and their diet includes various plant parts like leaves, shoots, and berries. And when the salmon swim upriver to mate, the brown bears will wade into the water to catch fresh fish to eat. They'll also eat smaller mammals, and sometimes large ones like moose. They'll occasionally scavenge meat, and they've been known to bring food back to their den to be stored and eaten later. Or they'll bury their food to hide it from other scavengers and let it soften up a bit and decay, so that when they return to it days or weeks later, the meat will be easy to consume. This strategy is often used in the weeks leading up to hibernation, so when the brown bear leaves hibernation at the end of winter, hungry and fat depleted, it has some amount of known food reserves scattered around the area, ready to be eaten. Now, one such brown bear was living its life in the Tuvan region, finding prey animals, attacking them, and eating them immediately or storing their bodies somewhere for later eating. Also in the region were a small group of human hunters, aided by their hunting dogs. As this hunting party was moving through the forest, the dogs picked up the smells of a bear den and they became excited. They ran towards it, barking with alarm, and refusing their owners' calls to heel. The dogs' stubbornness forced their owners to follow after them towards the bear den. When the human hunters looked inside, they saw what they described as a, quote, human mummy, unquote. This human figure was plastered in blood and filth, with infected wounds oozing pus. His hair and beard were matted with dirt and mucus. He had huge welts on his back and legs, where the rough ground had worn away the skin, and he also had extensive friction burns under his armpits. His skin was dirty and unwashed, gaunt and sunken, hanging off of his bones, and eerily pale with a purple hue, as if he was long dead. The hunters can be forgiven for initially thinking that the man was dead. But despite his serious emaciation, his wounds, his gangrene, and his most likely being on the edge of sepsis, the man was alive. The man opened his blood-caked eyelids to stare with watery blue eyes at his rescuers, and he was able to croak out a single word: his name, Alexander. They ran to pull him out of the bear den, where he was brought to an undisclosed hospital and treated for his extreme injuries. In the aftermath of his rescue, Alexander was able to recount what had happened. He had lived here in the Tuvan region, but he had had the misfortune of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. About a month before his rescue, at some place in the forests of the Tuvan region, a brown bear saw him, determined he was a suitably tasty piece of food, and attacked him. The bear broke his spine. It chewed on him for a bit, and then dragged him back to its den. Alexander said, quote, "The bear preserved me as food for later. I drank my own urine to survive," unquote. Alexander has survived, and he's apparently going to recover. So this is a crazy ass story about a man getting too close to the dangers of the wilderness, and somehow managing to survive. Unfortunately, it's hard to determine how accurate this story is. There's video of the guy shortly after he was rescued, and it's really gritty and gnarly. There's no denying the magnitude of his injuries. But was he really in the bear's cave for a month, surviving only on his urine and perhaps on any leftover meat he could pick off the frozen bones of earlier prey? I mean, sure, it's within the realm of possibility, but on the other hand, the story doesn't contain much useful information. The location he was found in and the hospital that treated him are not disclosed. This means that there's no way to get information on the guy as a medical patient. Like, there's no further evidence like x-rays of his broken spine, or what kind of infections he had, or how far his sepsis had advanced, or anything. Furthermore, what was the context of the attack? Was Alexander minding his own business and the bear snuck up on him? Did he notice the bear but panicked and tried to run, thus causing the bear to charge? Is it possible that he fought back? I don't think he'd be alive if he tried. Was he perhaps antagonizing the bear? It's distinctly possible, but no article I've read has any conclusive evidence or any deeper details. And for that matter, the only sources publishing this story are crappy tabloids. So who knows what happened? But if it is true, as Alexander tells it, and that very possibly could be true, then he has endured one of the most extreme interactions with a brown bear that any human has ever had, coming to a place where he stared death in the face for a month and survived. That's one hell of a story.